Good morning. Martin knows very well that when he has to admit that he doesn't have the answers, and he's sitting in front of his bosses, he has to go and say nice things about his bosses. So afterwards, when you moderate the session with Arnold and I, just be sure that you give the difficult questions to Nolene and you don't embarrass us, Martin. Thank you. Your Excellencies, other speakers and advisory board members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and all the young people here participating in this summit today. It is indeed my pleasure to open the inaugural Society Leadership Summit 2015. And a warm welcome to all of you, especially those who've traveled from quite far away to SMU for this event. Looking around this auditorium, I think we see many friends with us here today, including the ambassadors from Brazil, Brunei, and the Philippines. And it's definitely an honor considering the amount of years that each of them have put in as societal leaderships, leaders in their own field, for us to have you with us. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize some of the advisory board members of ISL who have traveled to Singapore just to support this summit and for our own advisory board meeting tomorrow. We have, for example, Kun Asa Sarasin, former Foreign Minister and Principal Private Secretary to the King of Thailand. We have Pak Arifin Siregar, former Governor, Bank of Indonesia, Mr. Gita Wirawan, former Minister of Trade of Indonesia, Dr. Nolene Hazer, former Undersecretary General of the United Nations, who will also be with us on the panel later on and who will field all the difficult questions. I could go on the list here, we've got Ivy, Sanjeev, Shankar, and of course Mr. Ratan Tata, who unfortunately could not be with us today here, but without wanting to sound like a directory and a roll call, I want to thank all of you for making time for this inaugural summit. One of the board members I'd like to mention in particular is Ms. Janet Lim, a Singaporean who recently retired as the Assistant UN High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. She spent many years tackling the complex global problem of saving the lives of refugees, an issue that continues to be very real for all of us in the world, whether it be in Europe or even in Asia. I encourage you to read an article that she's written entitled, quote, "A World in Crisis, Conflicts, Refugees, and Humanitarian Response," unquote, which she contributed to Catalyst Asia, the magazine of ISL, which Martin referred to earlier, and which I think will be made available at the tea break. Janet has also been recently appointed Fellow of the School of Social Sciences here at SMU. So welcome, Janet, to the SMU community. I think all of us can appreciate the complexities of societal issues today. And unlike mechanical problems, societal issues are living and breathing, and as such require new ways of solution seeking. Ideas are always enough, but it is in execution that is problematic. And whether it's a problem of refugees in Europe or in Asia, the continuous threat of terrorism and the underlying societal reasons for this to manifest itself, or the environment in Southeast Asia, such as the haze, there's a deep need to understand the depth of the problem, to understand that it is a whole of society issue, and therefore, being such a broad issue, it really truly requires more participants from civil society to resolve these issues as a whole of society problem. The rise of social enterprises as another cluster outside of traditional government, NGOs, and communities of volunteers is a fascinating development in the last decade or so. And while we want to contribute to this and we want to see more people participate in NGOs and civil society, there are also very complex issues associated with this. As social enterprises proliferate, more people who are perhaps not that dedicated to social welfare and want to take the platform of social enterprises for their own private, perhaps even selfish purposes, are also coming onto the scene. And that's another broad issue to have to deliberate. We should be happy on one hand of the rise of civil society. We should also be careful about how civil society is not exploited by people for their own specific individual purposes. The region is very complex, and with multiple religions, cultures, and governments, each society operates with its own historical and geographic peculiarities. And while peace has largely been the operating environment for all of us in Asia, the possibilities for tension and conflicts continue to exist. And it highlights the need for this region to converge while it continues to diverge. And this provides us with a very rich canvas for research, understanding, outreach to different communities, and particularly to the young. The inaugural Societal Leadership Summit is our first attempt to bring the region closer to have a better understanding of the challenges we all face. Through such open platforms, we believe that good conversations will lead to sharper minds, better answers, and new collaborations. This is a summit to deepen our knowledge and efforts, and challenging one another is as important as forging new relationships for today and tomorrow. The Institute for Societal Leadership is committed to not only organizing the summit and the various programs for the region, but also for researching on the concept of societal leadership. The Institute intends to provide very strong research and development on the impact of leadership, and very often, of course, on the paucity and the lack of it, and the region's future in relationship to all these whole-of-society issues. Finding the intersection between academic rigor and real-world insights will require deep analysis around the value of collaboration across sectors, the role of social enterprises versus NGOs, and the skills needed for future societal leaders to resolve such complex issues. The ISL is a representation of SMU's commitment to deepening content, which are, of course, the social issues, and broadening context, which is, of course, the region as our neighborhood. And as we establish SMU as a different you, we also want to be a more relevant you. So the ISL plays a key role in realizing SMU's Vision 2025 of being a game changer, a catalyst, and a global example by the work the Institute does in the region. By investing in new knowledge, forging new partnerships, and creating platforms such as this summit, the Institute intends for greater collaboration and conversations to take place around issues which matter to all of us. So it is now my pleasure to declare the Societal Leadership Summit 2015 open, and to welcome you all to have an engaged, and very fruitful conversation ahead. Thank you very much.